Hey, aloha, and welcome to Stan the Energy Man here on ThinkTech Hawaii. Stan Osserman coming to you live and direct from beautiful downtown Kailua, Hawaii. And I have to do a truth in lending or a full disclosure statement. Although this looks like an aloha shirt, it's actually a Tahitian shirt. And I don't want any of our friends from French Polynesia to call me on it. So yeah, it's not really a Hawaiian shirt. But hey, you know what? It's Hawaii, so we got to wear one that looks like a Hawaiian shirt. And speaking of Hawaiian, there's a Hawaiian that lives in New Jersey named Mike Stritsky, who wanted me to tell you about something going on Thursday evening. Well, it's Thursday evening on the East Coast time, 7 o'clock, and it's 2 in the afternoon here in Hawaii, or 4 o'clock in the afternoon on the West Coast. But there's a Sustainability Now live Hangouts event that happens weekly on Thursdays at that time. And this week on the 27th, they're showing a video called At War with the Dinosaurs. And Mike Stritsky and the director, John Michael Parkin, are going to be taking Q&A after they show that film. And it's a really good film. I've seen it a couple times, and it's a real eye-opener, especially it kind of explains why hydrogen technology kind of died off after it started rolling in the mid first decade of this century, and you'll find it really interesting. But anyway, for today, got a great guest on. One of the things that the title will tell you about is in my past life in the military, I used to do air refueling, and we used to have a T-shirt that said we pass more gas before 9 a.m. than most people do in a lifetime. And so that inspired the title for today's show. Michael Koontz is with me from IGX Group, and they have equipment that does just what I did in the Air Force. It passes gas. It takes hydrogen gas and passes it to vehicles or to stationary fuel cells, and it's a really interesting concept, and it's really a kind of a neat market because as far as I know, they're one of the few companies that makes equipment to do this stuff. And so, welcome to the show, Michael, and I appreciate you joining me today. You look like you're kind of cold over there with me in my aloha shirt. You look kind of like you're bundled up, but it's only California. It can't be that bad.
This is Patagonia, not Hawaiian.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it's colder in my office than it is outside. But
okay. Well, hey, how about you haven't been on my show at least for a couple of years anyway. Could you tell the folks a little bit about yourself and how you got into working with Luxfer and IGX Group?
yeah, so well, I guess we kind of step back a little bit. I come from the industrial gas world, where hydrogen has been one of the major industrial gases for a long time. And I've been an independent distributor of gases and manufacturer gases for, oh gosh, since 1991. So back in about 2007, 2008, my operation in Indonesia, I was approached by some guys that said, hey, we need natural gas to be distributed around the island. And they didn't have the gas infrastructure. So I developed a CNG storage vessel in a 20-foot container that would do the same thing that the big 40-foot jumbo steel trailers would do. Well, that kind of kicked it all off. We pretty much have equipment all over Indonesia transporting natural gas. We received the DOT special permits here in the United States, landed a contract almost immediately with the US government for transporting helium in these composite-based transports, where they airlift helium over to Afghanistan and Iraq for the base operations. Well, Luxfer was my supplier on cylinders. After that, we entered into a joint venture that lasted through about 2018. 2019, I bought them out of their position, and pretty much it's the Michael show, I guess, or it's the IGX show. So we're independent now from Luxfer, but we're still good partners with Luxfer as a cylinder supplier. But we also buy cylinders from a lot of other companies. And when I say cylinders, we're talking about composite cylinders, where they're lightweight, very high pressure. Currently our line goes up to 7,500 psig in the type of cylinders we have, but they're very lightweight, and that high pressure allows us to carry a lot of product.
So a scuba tank is like 2,500 psi. So you're like 3 times the pressure of a scuba tank in these things.
Yeah, well, actually, firemen use these all the time. That SCBA tank that they'll have on their back, that'll typically do 4,500 psig of air. So we're using that same technology. We just go bigger, and so we get like 10-foot long cylinders, and we bundle them in, put them into specially designed racks. We have a valve company that makes the high pressure valves and the thermal relief device and safety systems for it. And so we, as a result of that, we've become one of the premier manufacturers of high pressure gas transports in the United States. So we supply all the major gas companies. We supply a lot of other companies you know names of, but primarily our business today, I'd say 80% of our business or more is supplying high pressure hydrogen transports. And this, we make the largest high pressure, or the highest, the biggest high pressure gas transport on the highways today. And it's 52 feet long. And we make them as big as that to small units that would go in the back of a pickup truck. In fact, Stan, we talked earlier about some of your projects. We make a little pack that is there to tender and provide the AAA type service to a hydrogen fuel cell car that may run out of gas, to deliver the proverbial 2 gallons of gasoline, but in hydrogen terms. So we make things that small. The other side of our business, which so we build these transports, we build storage units for hydrogen as well, high pressure. But the other thing that's really exciting, we'll show you some pictures up here in a bit, is our H2 power line. So we've taken a lot of combination of our knowledge of fuel cells and certainly our expertise in high pressure packaging, and we've combined that to make the H2 power liner products, which are hydrogen fuel cell power generators. So we're now got a lot of exciting equipment out there in the marketplace. So yeah, it's been a great ride. I'll tell you, the market and the business has been great. It's expanding. Fuel cells are everything. Hydrogen is going to be the wave of the future here for us.
I agree. I definitely agree. So the type of tanks I'm familiar with are Type 3 and Type 4. Could you explain the difference between the Type 3 and Type 4 tanks for viewers?
Oh yeah, absolutely, Stan. So Type 3, they're both composite tanks. Type 3 tanks have a non-permeable metal liner, typically aluminum. So it's very lightweight. It's obviously it's non-porous. And then they fully overwrap that cylinder with carbon fiber, and that gives it the strength, the high pressure in there. The Type 4 tanks is a plastic liner, usually high density polyethylene that's been blow molded or some kind of forming method. They then fully overwrap that with carbon fiber. So the advantages, the Type 4 tanks are a little less expensive. The drawbacks are is they typically don't transfer heat very well. As you can imagine, plastic doesn't conduct heat as well as aluminum. They are porous, so they do have a permeation rate. They try to minimize that. But yeah, it's out there. Usually you saw Type 4 tanks being used with natural gas applications because natural gas is a big molecule.
Right.
Hydrogen being the smallest molecule, most of my customers are very concerned about leaking, obviously. It's not the kind of gas you want to have leaking out. And so Type 3 tanks seem to be the predominant tank for hydrogen applications.
That's a great explanation. I knew a little bit about that, but I didn't know the plastic was a little bit more permeable. So that's an important factor.
Well, I always compare it to if you were to go buy one of those half-gallon soda bottles and you left it on the shelf for a couple of weeks and you'd open it up, it'd be flat because the CO2 permeates through the plastic. Hydrogen does the same kind of thing, except it's even smaller and moves a little faster. So,
well, let's take a quick tour through some of the images that we have and some of the products that you guys make. So, hey,
yeah.
Eric, can you throw up the first image and we'll start talking about that?
Yeah. So, oh, is that up there? Yeah. So one of the things we do is we also have a distribution side of our business. So we distribute high pressure hydrogen around the United States. We supply companies, pretty much all the major cellular carriers here in the U.S., the AT&Ts, the Verizons, the Sprints, the T-Mobiles, where they're using high fuel cells as a backup power instead of a diesel generator. Why? Because they're quiet, so there's usually an environmental sensitivity nature to it. Two, reliability. A fuel cell has no moving parts. That's the beauty of it. So it can sit there for months and never be called upon to run. And when that time is required, a little solenoid valve opens up, this hydrogen passes over the membranes, and you're producing power. So that's been the big thing. But our job and the role in that, based on that picture what you just saw, is we deliver hydrogen to those sites to fill up the hydrogen storage banks at the up the hills. And I'll tell you, we get deployed up, like I said, up hills, down desert roads, some of the wildest places you can imagine. We get called up. Recently, we were called upon on a lot of the fires here in California. What was up and running with those cell sites, and we were going up and replenishing their hydrogen supply so they could stay online and keep emergency responders, first responders, kind of keep their communication up and running. So we're distributing a lot of that. So what you see in that picture is us going up a road where I think there's a bunch of fires. I don't know if you got that picture up still.
There's the truck picture, yeah. Yeah,
Yes.
the background is all burned out already.
Yep, yep. But we were dispatched pretty much 24/7 delivering hydrogen around the state of California. So that kind of gives you an idea of some of the stuff we do there, but all using some of the transports that we build.
Yeah, a lot of people don't realize that the cell towers, those remote cell towers, a lot of them are using fuel cells to back up their solar power, or to run their systems up there. And if they're commercial, if they have commercial power, if it drops off, or if they're solar panels, it gets cloudy for a few weeks and the solar dies down, the fuel cell will kick in and keep charging and or sending power to the towers.
Yeah, you'll see in a few of the slides coming up here, we've got some fuel cells where they're actually now providing primary power, and it's the advantages of fuel cells over a diesel generator are immeasurable, especially when you want reliability. And in these
Yeah,
cases, you'll understand why.
and
So,
efficiency.
and efficiency, absolutely. The great thing with fuel cells is they're called load following. So you only produce the power that it needs. Unlike a diesel generator, it will sit there and it will run at some idle speed, generating power, whether it's being used or not. When it doesn't
Right.
use it, it goes to ground. And so that's kind of the beauty with fuel cells, as you pointed out, Stan, is that it's extremely efficient.
Yeah. So the second picture we had, I'm familiar with that equipment. It's the one on the docks
Yep.
with so talk about that one a little bit.
Yeah, that was in Hawaii. So that's kind of made its trip around the States. So that now is at the Scripps Marine Institute, and it is providing shore power to that research vessel behind it there. So it's a 100 kilowatt system. We provide the hydrogen for that. So we bring the hydrogen with one of our refuelers there and top that off periodically.
Yeah, for the folks in Hawaii, that blue container behind the pickup truck that's getting fueled was being experimented with by Sandia National Labs and Young Brothers, one of our local barge companies, and it was supposed to be running on the barge between Maui and Oahu to keep refrigerated containers cold on that trip. I'd imagine it's probably a 6 hour trip, 5 hour trip between the islands. And that was out here for full 6 months while Sandia collected data on the equipment and ran it, and worked all the bugs out of the system. And although the equipment worked pretty well, I don't know that they ever got it on the barges, but it's definitely a good piece of equipment. It did the job. But Young Brothers is a commercial entity that they can't afford to have a failure, so they didn't want to put that on and rely on it 100%. So I think they put it on and let it run, but they also had a backup generator just in case. But it was good equipment, and then it's a good thing that it was. What was good for us is we got to train the Coast Guard and the local firefighters, the harbor patrol and the harbor firefighters on fire safety using hydrogen, which is something they otherwise would have never learned about.
Well, I think the beauty about that too is that it was one of the first. But I think being the first one off the lot, there's a little bit of a learning curve to go through as well. I think everybody went through that with that, but I think it demonstrated that the need is there, and we just have to tune it up and optimize how those solutions are going to look like. So I would say with that was built what, maybe 3 4 years ago we
Yeah, about
started.
4 years ago.
Yeah, so I think today you'd find a very different kind of product, or an improved version of that out of the market, much more reliable, that at that higher power output, because that was a 100 kilowatt system.
Yes.
So that's quite a lot of juice. But I think today I think next year, later this year, you'll see some stuff coming out of us. I think starting to provide a competitive edge to that and start to optimize it. Let's take a look at some of the other pictures. What do you
The
got?
third picture coming up. Yeah, that it looks like one of your storage units or a trailer unit to dispense to a truck.
Yeah, so this is kind of a neat one. This is we're supporting three Class 8 truck hydrogen fuel cell projects out at the port of Long Beach. So because there's nowhere for them to go get filled, we bring the fuel to them. So we're refueling that fuel cell Class 8 truck there. So they're using that as a drayage truck. They love them. And the guy, one of the drivers I spoke to, was saying they've got to going up this big bridge. You've got to go up to get off the Long Beach port island, or port, I guess the Long Beach island where the port is. Um, Trucks are shifting through gears, getting up that hill, and this is an electric vehicle essentially with power to fuel cell.
Lots of torque.
The guy's in the right-hand lane passing all these other trucks, and they're waving and honking. And he says, I love this thing. This has just got power to spare. So yeah, no, it's a great, it's just a really great show of what we can do with fuel cells and where the future is going to go.
Great. What's the next photo we have there? Next image we have. This is this is something before you guys split off into your group. We bought 2 of your light carts from Luxford GTM, and we've actually had a couple opportunities to use them at Oktoberfest and at a couple of high-end dinner events, outdoor fundraiser dinners. And these things were awesome, and people were blown away that they didn't make any noise. In fact, during the Oktoberfest, there were people sitting around with their beer and their food on top of the light cart and talking and stuff. And one guy came up to me when I went to just check the status of the light cart, and he says, "Oh, this is your stuff?" I go, "Yeah." He goes, "This is amazing." And everybody else didn't even think about it, but this guy worked in the movie industry. He goes, "We love these things. They don't make any noise." I go, "Not only that, but the power that comes off them is a real clean signal. Your sound guys would love this stuff." So why don't you tell us a little bit about your light carts?
Yeah, that was one of my hobby projects when I started off, and we basically built a light cart and wanted to make sure see if we can do that. So we had the version you have has one single large tank in there, I believe, and we now have a version with 6 little swappable tanks, the little lightweight, the 9 liter like an SCBA tank, retrofitted with a valve regulator on that, and it allows you to be out in the field and hot swap those out. But yeah, we'll be coming out with that. We've got I think a little more cost competitive version than the first ones. But the concept is good. We had a lot of great reception to that. We sold several of those units. And to your point, Stan, I mean, people love them. There's no noise. They can park them in the middle of events. You're right. It's got a nice flat surface. I'm not sure how that plays. People pouring a beer on that. I'm not sure I need that. I want to hear that story. But the bottom line is, why can you do it? Because you can. The noise, there's no noise, there's no hot exhaust pipe.
Yeah.
They're beautiful.
Well, the first thing on your checklist was level the system so you could pour your beer on it.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, when Magnum PI and Hawaii 5.0 start filming again here pretty quick, you probably ought to talk to HCAT and have them use some of that equipment and maybe buy some of your new ones. I know that you've probably come a long way in design.
Absolutely. I know we're running close to short of time. Let's go to the next slide here.
That's just another of the light card shots at Alcatraz.
Yep, we use them at Alcatraz for the light there. They're obviously very energy green oriented, and so they've used them there for their night.
I see one big improvement. It looks like you have a side opening door you can open up.
Yep, so you can have access to the control panel that's in there now, and yeah, this one doesn't have the swappable tanks, but we don't have a picture of that here, but
okay,
got that.
So, all right, what's the next image? Oh, this is one I'm familiar with.
Yep,
you can talk about it.
Yeah, this is one of our power generators. I think Stan, you guys bought a couple of these as well.
We bought 2 of these.
Yeah, so this has a 5 kilowatt fuel cell in there, and it's got an inverter and a buffer battery system, but it provides 110 AC power, and it's got AC outlets around it, and you plug it in and turn it on and start pulling power. And it's like I said, it doesn't make noise. It's kind of a neat system.
Yeah, it's got 420 amp circuits out of it, and it's really funny. I'm used to this, but one of my guests coined the term energy ignorance, and his point was people know how much their energy bill costs from the electric company or their gas bill costs, but they have no idea how many amps something pulls or how many kilowatt hours they use. And when I went up to one of these events with this generator, and I asked the folks, how much power do you need? None of them can answer the question. And so it turns out we use that generator to light up a whole VIP event, and we use the 2 light carts to provide some lighting outside the area on the way to the restrooms. And the funny thing was, that generator ran the sound system. They had a big screen TV. They had all the lighting for a huge tent, and then they had a caterer, and the caterer was using gas, propane gas to cook on stoves and stuff. But they didn't tell me that the caterer had a convection oven, and that one convection oven pulled so much amps that it would dim the lights in the tent because it must have pulled a ton of power. So I had a little 2,000 watt like generator, and I went over there and I hooked it up just to their oven so that they didn't screw with the rest of our power. But that was a lesson learned from me on making sure you calculate the actual use. We don't think about that. We're just so used to plugging whatever into the wall and it works. But you have to
Yeah,
think about those things.
yeah, it's one of the things I tell people who start to look at fuel cells as an alternative to diesel engines is you do have to be more I call power mindful, which means exactly what you said, Stan. Really taking an audit of your power requirements and understanding what the amp load is. We often find that people kind of overkill it with diesel engines. Yeah, just throw a 25 kilowatt or horsepower engine on it, and they don't really realize how much they really need. And usually it's a
Yeah.
lot less. So the great thing about electronics today is we have faster stuff and it uses a lot less power too.
Yeah.
So when you start thinking about that, the average household power consumption has gone from like 10 kilowatts down to 2.5 kilowatts on average.
Yeah.
So that's where fuel cells really can start to make a difference here.
Yeah. Well, let's
So
throw up the next image for you to talk about. And while we're doing that, I'd like to comment too that we did run that generator for a disaster exercise with the Indonesians of all people. When I was in the Guard, we ran the generator and it ran the entire pandemic exercise for two days straight, nonstop. And those generators did run a long time. So we'd run them for like 2 days straight. They're great pieces of equipment.
that's the next one there, Eric. And this is one of our power generators at the Super Bowl fan village that was back when this 49 was held in San Francisco. And so just again, that's a 5 kilowatt engine. We powered up, I think the Sonoma Wine Country's Welcome Village. We powered up some handicap wheelchair charging centers as well. So it got a lot of applications. And I think we went out, it was like a week-long event. And I think we had to fill it only twice during that period. And they ran
Yeah.
pretty much all day.
Yeah, they're great. They're a great piece of equipment. What's
So
the
it's,
next image we got there, Eric?
yeah, this one here is kind of this is an exciting one. This is one with Customs and Border Patrol. What you're looking at here is a surveillance tower that's down low, but that actually will get jacked up 80 feet in the air. And all that electronic gear up there is run by that little brown trailer that's sitting next to it on the bottom. That is it's our Taurus system, and that has got hydrogen fuel cells in there for power, a large supply of hydrogen that will run that tower provide power 24/7 for 45 days. So it gives you an idea of how it works. So there was a big debate about whether or not to go with the fuel cells versus the diesel engines. Well, that's out in the desert. So a fuel cell can handle 120-degree days. And then when it drops to freezing at night, it can handle that. Those diesel engines don't handle that so well. And the nice thing is with obviously the fuel cell, almost no noise. So the bad guys you don't see the bad guys coming, or they don't hear it. They don't know where it's at. No emissions. The diesel engines had a couple instances where they leaked diesel fuel out of the tank for whatever reason, and that became a hazmat event. So they had to scrape up dirt. And fuel cell, hydrogen just goes up.
Yeah.
That's kind of a neat project. So we were able to save them a lot of money in terms of just operating costs, which made up for the premium that the CapEx component of it. So
Yeah.
great story there. What do you got for the next one?
Yeah, what's the next image we got, Eric? Oh yeah, this is that
Yeah.
same vehicle?
No, this is different. This is a portable system. It's a smaller version. This is a system we're building for one of the armed military forces. They mount this on the back of a pickup truck, and this is a surveillance that will go up 20 feet in the air. The object is to be able to drive this truck to some location to do surveillance work, put the tower up, turn the truck off because you don't want to use up all your gas powering up stuff, and they run off that pack in the back, providing power for that tower that's up there. So they were able to run in stealthy mode, no heat signature, no noise. They're not taxing the engine in there or the fuel that they have to get back around. So that's kind of a neat system that's out there. So in the military is going to see more and more of those kind of portable fuel cell systems.
Yeah. Do you know Abbas Godarzi from
Oh,
US Hybrid down? Okay, because he's probably down the street from you in California
yeah,
and everything.
he's close.
Anyway, Abbas was the first contractor I worked with when I went to HCAT. And I said, "Hey, Abbas, what is it about your hydrogen vehicles that the military, why would they buy these things? I mean, what is it good for?" He says, "It's clean and green." And I said, "The
Oh, boy.
military, they may do clean and green if it's a policy decision by the federal government, but their job is to blow things up and kill people. So they don't really care if it's clean and green. What does your equipment do for the military?" And he couldn't answer the question. And I
I,
said, "Our first challenge is to teach you that your equipment is silent, like you've mentioned. It doesn't make noise. The military, when you're in a tactical environment, doesn't want noise. Number two, it doesn't have much of a heat signature. When the bad guys are looking for thermal images at night so they can see where activity is happening, whether it's engines or people or whatever, they look for a thermal image. Your stuff can mask that really easily.
yep,
Number three, there's no noxious fumes coming off of it. So the Air Force, when they want to load bombs in a hangar 24 hours a day around the clock, they can put hydrogen fuel cell equipment inside, and the only thing coming out is water and electricity and a little tiny bit of heat. I said, that's what you got to sell the military, not clean and green. So get off the environmental stuff and the climate change stuff and start thinking military. And so we had a couple of conferences here in Hawaii because Hawaii has a big military presence, including Indo-Pacific Command, which is a joint command, the largest in the world. And when they have a conference, we've had them out to our station in Hickam, and we gave them that briefing and talked to them about the equipment. And within a year of that is when the Army and the Navy started really going into hydrogen fuel cells. So I'm really happy to see that last image of the vehicle, the tactical vehicle.
I think you're going to see more. We also are seeing it in the drone industry. I mean, you
Exactly.
got your, I call it your hobby drones, your DJIs. It'll stay up for 20, 25 minutes.
Exactly.
When you start taking that same weight in batteries and you replace it with a fuel cell and a lightweight small composite tank, same weight, you go from 20 to 25 minutes to 2 hours to 2.5 hours. That's
Exactly.
a big deal. And so and when the plane or the air drone returns, the filling of that cylinder takes seconds.
Yeah.
A battery, you got to swap, you got to have extras, you got to make sure they're charged. Yeah, we could fill that cylinder and have that back in the air and deployed again. But you're seeing the applications not only in military, law enforcement, search and rescue. You're going to see a lot of it in commercial stuff. We have one client that has got massive, hundreds of thousands of square feet of warehouse, and they are constantly doing physical inventories. Well, they got people on the ground walking up and down the aisles with scanners. Well, what they did, they put the scanners on the drone and they send the drone off down these aisles. Now they want that thing to be down running for 2 hours or so, not 20
Yeah.
minutes. It can't get down the aisle in time. So it's yeah, so some neat things even on the drone world with fuel cells. And we support them in providing the high pressure hydrogen, by the way.
Yep.
So,
And the Navy does something called a UUV, unmanned underwater vehicle. And
yep,
guess what? They're big into hydrogen. Well, believe it or not, Michael, we blasted through 30 minutes. I told you it'd go
wow,
really fast.
it
And I
did.
know your
Thank you.
phone rang just to tell you that. So I'd like to thank you again for being on the show today and look forward to doing some business with you as the industry starts expanding. And thank you for all the work that you're doing. You're filling a really important role. And I imagine you're pretty busy because lots is happening in the hydrogen world. So appreciate being on and hope to have you back on sometime soon.
Stan, thank you for having me. And yes, we're here to help you. And any questions, give us a ring. Take care.
All right, that's
Aloha.
going to do it for today on Stan Energy Man. So until next Tuesday, aloha.